here. The brain operates in a more open kind of way when it gets a sense of things being more real. Because you know how we're buried in ourselves, we're confused, we have this inner voice, blah, 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 blah. But when someone says, so it's the small spaces that are connected in some way, so you don't want to go too far with it, that are connected in some way with your becoming afraid. So you've reflected the event feeling complex, and the theme. And in none of those operations, if you're good at it and you're listening really carefully and you don't miss the mark, in none of those operations will the brain get defensive, because it doesn't see you. It's amazing. You can do this in an audience, and the whole audience will see you doing it, but the person you're talking to, they won't even see it, because it's what we call ego syntonic. It's absolutely in the flow. Okay. There's another thing you can do that doesn't alert the brain's defenses. You can ask a question, as long as you ask it in a general kind of way. Would you like to say some more about that? Was there anything else going on at the time? Sorry. So you can ask a question if it's a well-placed connection, if it's a well-placed question, and you won't be defended against. You will if it's a stupid question. It has to be, that's why you ask it in a very general, open kind of way. Would you like to say a bit more about that? Or, so how did you end up feeling? Or whatever. So questions are permissible. There's another thing you can say, and it's very, very tricky, and it should never be used. No, it shouldn't be used too often. You can make an empathic comment. You could say something like, that was a very frightening experience for you. And the person doesn't get triggered into defensiveness, as long as you say it in the right kind of way. But if you keep empathizing with people, gee, that must have been terrible. Oh, I don't know how you stood that. No, that's an incredible experience. And you do that 4 or 5 times in a session, and the person's going to go, get out of my life. Because it starts to feel unreal. So you can reflect an event, a feeling, an event-feeling connection, a theme of something that keeps repeating. You can ask a question, and you can, whatever the last thing was I said. Sometimes I forget where the hell I am. Anyway, whatever. Okay, now the interesting thing about this is that these are all conscious. These are all things that you can consciously do. But there's another level of reflecting which enters the realm of art. I have never painted a picture in my life. I do not consider myself an artist, although if you go to my website you will find a book of love poetry, if you go down to the bottom. And so I suppose since I've created some love poetry that isn't too bad, I guess I could think I'm an artist, a little bit of an artist. But the issue is this: what is art? I think that art is when the artist's unconscious draws something up and puts it out into the world, which when you look at it, it stirs something in your unconscious. So art for me is one unconscious talking to another unconscious. Could be a piece of pottery, could be anything, could be anything. I have this abstract thing on the wall of my living room which doesn't make any sense at all. I've been looking at it for 30 years and I love it every time I see it. It's just amazing, you know, it's something. I don't know what it is or where it is. Maybe it's in my liver. I don't know. Maybe it's... Okay, I'm going to come back into the room here before I get lost, or more lost or something. So, we're talking in general about navigating inside the therapeutic experience. And we come to law number 4. Because now we're going to talk about a whole different kind of work. I call it unconscious therapist reflecting. And these are things that we cannot do by consciously arranging them. There is no manipulative element here. Oh, I forgot to say something. Forgot to write it down in here, actually. Just a minute. Yeah, I did. Just a minute. I'm going to make a note of this. I thought I was finished with this. Okay. Conscious reflecting takes place at the upper levels. The mind is moving forward in time. And good conscious reflecting will flip someone down one notch into something that lies one level down. That's called the pre-conscious, or I sometimes call it the almost conscious. So that really good, when someone tells you a story up here, and you do a really good reflection, it'll take them down one level and they'll say, yeah, I never thought of that. So the pre-conscious is the level of mental function that someone can access if it's mentioned. Now let's talk about unconscious reflecting, because this is a different thing. This is where the art in therapy comes. Okay, unconscious therapist reflecting that we cannot consciously arrange, and I call this resonance therapy, and it depends on law number 4, which says, all brains contain the potential to have all processes. Thus, we all resonate and trigger each other at an unconscious level. I am the murderer. I am the thief. I am the whatever, you name it. The longer I work on myself, the more I get in touch with my rage, my sadism, my hurt, I discover that there is everything in me. And part of becoming a therapist is to do enough work on yourself that you don't have to go, whoa, to anybody else, because you think, yeah, I know that one. I don't, of course, I'm pure through and through. But don't talk to my girlfriend, okay? I'm sorry. I should be in Vegas, I know. Anyway, all right, let's just try and get back into this thing. All right. So, when we listen to someone, if we've done enough work on ourselves, and if we've heard enough stories, and when we listen to somebody in a certain kind of way, we can learn to respond more and more deeply to what is not being said, to what lies deeply beneath the surface self, and even below the pre-conscious self. This kind of listening I call resonant listening, and it requires that the mind be more and more empty of the following things: personal inner conflict, producing triggered reactivity to what the client is saying or doing. If you have stuff in you that you haven't worked on, and somebody brings it up, you will interfere with their process because it starts to put you off balance. And I'll talk about how in a few minutes. It also requires that the mind be more and more empty of knowledge and theoretical belief about what the client is supposed to be doing. When someone comes into your office and you say, well, I think we should work on anger this week, it's like, what? It's not your business to have in your mind what your client should be doing. It is only your business to be with them and let them decide what they're going to do. If you're a person who believes right to the core that birth is absolutely the determinant of all later events, I'm really sorry for the person who goes to you, because that's just not fair. You have somebody who grows up with a sadistic father for the first 15 years of their life, and you're going to bypass that and figure that they're only going to get better when they're doing birth work. This is not acceptable. If you're a person who thinks you always know exactly what the meaning is of everything everybody says to you, that doesn't work either in this realm of clear listening. So, to do effective work at the unconscious resonance level, you must listen to your clients from a place of profound ignorance. That doesn't sit too well with university people sometimes because they like to know things. Knowing things makes them feel safe. And there's a very interesting story about a Zen master. Let me tell you one Zen story. Zen master comes to the west coast of the United States, and a professor asks if he can see him, and he says yes. And the professor walks in, and the Zen master pours tea. Do you know the tea story? Yeah, and he pours the tea, and the tea fills the cup, flows over into the saucer, flows over onto the table, flows over onto the floor. And the professor says, "What are you doing?" And the Zen master says, your mind is like this teacup. There's really no room for anything else. When you listen to a client, you must listen with a very special kind of emptiness. I don't know who you are. I don't know what your next connection is going to be. I have no idea. I can only use Rogerian work with you. And if I listen, emptiness, when the Buddhists talk about emptiness, when the Zen people talk about emptiness, they're talking about emptiness on even yet a deeper level than I'm talking about. You don't have to be a Zen master to do therapy, but you have to be empty. You have to let the person who's talking to you trigger and bring to the surface something inside of you that resonates with them. In the book I give the example of a woman who I suddenly said, you really are the princess.